Hi, welcome to Awakening Soul Truth. I'm Robbie Short, and this is my friend Allison Ledbetter. We're both Reiki Masters, meditation teachers. I'm a yogi, and she is a medium, and we want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. It is a season of light and brightness and awakening. And I think it's my favorite holiday. I absolutely think it's my favorite holiday. It is a season that we associate with the actual birth of Christ as much as the birth of the light of Christ within your own heart. This doesn't mean it has to be religious. It is really about this message of a beautiful lifetime of someone aligned completely with the divine and an open heart. And you can expand on that and allow it to really absorb and be away. I love this notion that Christ is the way, because I actually feel like he's one of the greatest example of many very deeply spiritual people that are the way to awakening. His example, his life as an example of how do we make the wisest choices? How do we live a divine truth? How do we connect? It was all the time. It was in every way, shape, or form. And in fact, as I'm saying this, I'm like, right, I need to ask the divine to come in for our show. We usually meditate before our show
and we failed to do that today.
So we're taking a minute and just inviting, I actually say the Christ light and the connection to divine love when I pray or when I open up.
Well, going back to you saying the way, he definitely was a way shower.
Yeah.
And I know in my religious background, they would always pick things apart very literally.
Oh.
And it would be a way or the way. No, it's the way. But to be clear, there's many ways to go to the light. So he was definitely a way shower and not the only one to show the way.
Absolutely. We're very clear that, you and I use different techniques on a regular basis to experience and connect to the divine.
Yeah.
Hence the yoga.
Yes, it is.
But we're just in love with this season too, because the bright lights everywhere, the joy, it feels like Christmas really does give a cheer.
It does.
Around, and everyone's happy.
It really does. Remember in 2020 when everybody started wanting to put the Christmas up early?
Oh, right,
and
because
really,
of COVID.
And really embrace the holiday.
Oh, yes.
And I feel that way this year too. 2023 has been pretty intense, and in many ways, good and bad.
Yeah. But intense.
Yeah, and last night I was doing a Reiki retreat in Leapers Fork, and I went to see my son play, and I took all these back roads into Green Hills, and I saw nothing but Christmas lights and decorations, and it just made my soul happy.
Yes, absolutely.
See it. But this is considered the season of lights.
Mm-hmm.
Even Diwali that I experienced in India last month is called the Festival of Lights. And it's about the light ruling over the dark.
Yes.
Or turning darkness into light. And we see that with Hanukkah and the menorah candles. They're putting a light on each day. And then we have Christmas right after the winter solstice. And the winter solstice is the darkest day of the year, but it's also the promise that light is to come.
Yeah.
So I love that Christmas falls a few days after the winter solstice, because we have that promise of light returning.
Yes.
And so it's a great remembrance of the internal light.
Which gets us to the point where is it really his birth? No, it's really the symbol of light returning internally. Mm-hmm. Who knows if it's his birth?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't. I guess as we awaken and people are remembering, they probably find his birthday at a different time.
But what a beautiful thing to take someone so important in history that literally changed the calendar, who is represented and celebrated and honored
all over the world.
Yeah.
So we wish you a merry awakening of the Christ.
Yes. I believe it was in 2020 we also had the Christ or Christmas star
that came
about, which
astrologically
again is the hope of Christ consciousness returning, which I know is happening. I mean, there's so many awakenings. Even one of the ladies that I trained and graduated today in the Reiki certification, she said, you know, a couple years ago, I would not have embraced any of this. And she was sharing some of the awakenings that she's had in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's happening. If it's not happening for you, obviously it's happening for you. You wouldn't be joining us. But you're probably seeing it in, you know, pockets of the population or people that you know that are all of a sudden realizing things that they haven't been able to see or acknowledge before.
Which kind of gets me to the really beautiful point that people who thought they were really religious are actually awakening to a different, deeper truth of experiencing spiritual life. It's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all that false form of religion is starting to not hold up in the personal one-on-one relationship with the divine.
Yeah.
And I think the most important piece of awakening is this inward connection to the divine and having a mystical living relationship. So I have what I would call a living interactive relationship with Christ. He's my person on the other side as a guide, and it's a fluid conversation, and it's not a bowing down to him. I feel like he really almost gets ill to his stomach when people treat him like that. He doesn't like to be worshipped. He likes the experience of connecting, of providing wisdom, of taking the next step into the light. And that's why I feel like part of our message to you all today and to this whole awakening process is, you know, you're integrating into yourself, and that means you're having a deeper understanding of love as you awaken. And the Christ energy is just a tool to help you in that process. And the real version of the Christ, because the other version is really falling apart. I mean, I have had so many religious people come in here panicked about that, and you just mentioned it.
Do you remember the bracelets that people used to wear? What would Jesus do?
Yes.
I would have never worn one of those bracelets back in the day when that was a popular or trendy thing. However, I've had a situation this week, and for some reason, well, for good reason, every day when I've been processing this experience that I had, I've had this notion of what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do?
Right.
Because he was so loving and forgiving and compassionate. And I have been feeling this fountain of compassion coming up inside, which is why I think I would relate it back to the Christ energy.
Yes. I love that. It really is that compassion and that peace. Ah, beautiful.
I will say, because you were saying Jesus didn't like people bowing down to him or worshiping him, and that is, this is neither here nor there. It is one reason why I kind of backed away from church a little bit, because it was all Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I'm like, where's God in the picture here?
Yeah.
You know, I was is anybody else finding this unusual, you know? But anyway.
Again, most people don't have an interactive relationship with the divine. It's talking to, it's begging, it's asking.
And I do realize in Christianity, they believe you go to God through Jesus. You know, they feel like he is the way to God. But going back to what you said about not bowing down, I've actually had a Reiki session once, and I wish I could remember who it was, where I call in Christ energy when I'm over the heart. And I know you call it in general. I usually do it at the heart center. And he came, when the little vision I got of him coming down, he went to the person's feet to wash their feet.
Oh, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. He can do symbolic motions. He actually moves and heals on the other side.
Speaking of symbolic, last week I was giving Reiki to a woman that I've never given Reiki to before, but she's a yoga student of mine, and she came in for her first session, and I'm working with her. And when I went to her heart, I had a feeling she'd be good with Jesus, and I'm just now starting to ask people, are you okay if I call the Christ energy in? Because some people do have an aversion, and I do want to say, with the aversion piece, when I would ask telepathically and not say it out loud or ask the person, sometimes he wouldn't come.
Right.
And when I would ask the person, hey, do you have an aversion to Jesus? They would say yes.
Yep.
So I love the fact that he not protects, he respects people's boundaries.
Free will.
Yes, he was respecting the fact that, no, this person doesn't really want my energy here. And when he wouldn't come in, that's when I would ask. But this person, I went ahead and asked upright, up front. I said, do you mind if I call in the Christ energy? And she said, Jesus is the reason, right? Because we're right here at Christmas time. Jesus is the reason for the season. I'm like, perfect. So when I called him in, what I found so fascinating, and my images are so faint. They're not as clear as yours, but when I saw him come in, he had a woman next to him. And I've seen Mother Mary come in, and Mother Mary usually, to me anyway, and I know everybody gets their own kind of depictions, but she usually comes in blue and with a covering over her head, at least when I've seen her. And this was not Mother Mary. And I'm thinking, well, who is this? And it was the message, it was Mary Magdalene. And they were standing side by side, holding hands. And I kept trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the message here other than you brought Mary in with you? And the message that I was getting was, we are equal, and we are the same, and we are both powerful, and we are both here for this person and for this healing. And what I thought was so powerful about that too was the reading that I was getting from the Reiki was that her spouse in the relationship was overpowering and controlling. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is, Mary Magdalene was showing up and Jesus was presenting her as an equal.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I was able to relay this to her, like, you are an equal. There's no power dominion here.
I think this is one of the saddest misunderstandings of Christ. And I think that's why we can see that his power was changed, his story was changed, because he did see every person as having the ability to be equally loved by God, to have the equal access to the divine, to be on the path, that there are no conditions on his part or God's part, for matter, if he's the representative of God. So of course the Mary Magdalene and his energy are equals. It's very, very important for him to show that there's not a better group of people or sex or religion or anything, because we all have equal access to accepting love and being aligned with love. The Divine Feminine, the part of the retreat that we just put out is about, we are taking back those qualities of being in power as the Divine Feminine. A lot of times it's been, the feminine energy has been minimized and put as secondary to men. And that, I guess, is one of the conditions written about in the Bible.
I'll say that one more time.
That women are supposed to follow the lead of the man.
Yes, it's written in there several scriptures,
and so,
that the wife should be subservient to the man in different ways, in different wordings.
So, for me, that's a red flag that is not the truth of God. I understand that a lot of people feel like the Bible is God's truth, and there's parts of it that aren't, that it's not possible, because that's not a true spiritual law of God. Every person
I feel
has
like
the power.
I feel like that's where the Bible got tainted
Yes.
or changed, and that's
Well, and we've done a whole episode on it.
Go back and look at other shows. We've talked about that part.
But the really important piece we also wanted to mention today was like when I do readings, I've had a number of other women show up in relationship to sharing and spreading the story of Christ in real time during his lifetime, interacting with and being part of the teaching, and it wasn't just these 12 men, the apostles. And it's been very confusing but lovely to meet people that have had a past life in direct relationship with the Christ and working with him as a team and spreading the word of God. And not only has it been like lifetimes of women,
Oh, I was just going to say, you changed my whole Reiki practice because of this coming up in one of my sessions.
Yeah.
And that's how I teach other Reiki practitioners now. I teach them the same technique.
Yes, like the healing of one hand. Oh, so what you're referring to is the fact that Christ was showing us how to do healing, and one of the techniques is to put a hand on Christ, and it was more of a memory that came through of being with Christ and witnessing him healing. So when we pull up past lives, that window happens and information comes through. So we have a number of women that carried on the story of Jesus after his death. We're kind of proposing with this idea that there was women present during the life story of Jesus, that they carried on the story of Christ after his death. And why don't we see that in the book of John, Luke? I don't even know all the books.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
So in those books,
Acts and the letter of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians and Ephesians, Philippians. Yeah, sorry. Preach it, daughter.
Love it. Love it. So the question is, when are we going to have those real stories in real time come out? I am curious to know if we're going to see the real writings that happened during the life of Christ. There are real writings. There has to be. And they've disappeared from, I would say, a lot of the major institutions because they rewrote. They were the ones rewriting it and putting the men in charge of the story of Christ. And I invite you to awaken the feminine connection and the equality of women in the eyes of the Christ. And it's my belief we carried it on. We carried the tradition on. That the story of Christ spread by women all over Europe, all over the Middle East. It reached far and wide, and we're going to get that information uncovered sometime in the next 10 years through this whole awakening. Woo!
That would be really cool.
But that's because it's the truth.
I mean, the fact that even there's a Mary Magdalene gospel.
Yeah.
The Gospel of Mary Magdalene is out there and was suppressed and was hidden and was buried and just got rediscovered.
Yeah.
So there couldn't have just been one of those. There's probably multiple. And again, like you said, she wasn't the only one. So there had to be other writings depicting this or talking about this.
I mean, I think his mother would have written down a lot of it.
I think it's hidden below the Vatican. That's what I think.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's so much in the Vatican. I'm hopeful, let's put it that way, and that we get access. But awakening is said to be happening in remembering in everybody's DNA strands as they become activated by the light that's coming into the planet. And so as we're increasing our energy, an alignment with a higher vibration, we will all return to a cohesive pattern of truth. We haven't been living in that place of truth. We've been living in the veil and deception. And so there were many stories that weren't true. So truth exists. There is a finite truth that has happened.
I think it's very interesting you said that, because when I think truth being revealed, I often think, and it's probably both. It's, it's been hidden, it's been packed away. It's, I've been thinking of it in actual book form.
Right.
But what you just said made a lot of sense. It could be internal.
It's absolutely going to be internal.
Yeah.
I don't actually see it as in book form. I don't think the physical can prove it to us anymore. I think it's got to be the divine. I think that's what's happening for so many people is they're waking up and they're not feeling connected. They're like, where am I supposed to connect? Because all these outer things don't make sense anymore at all. I used to connect to money. I used to connect to my over logic ability to prove something. I used to connect to my, my brainiac skills. I used to connect to my good clothes, whatever it was, those things are false. And that's what's collapsing.
This is kind of a silly example, but we live in this neighborhood it's a nice neighborhood. And, it seems like every year since COVID, people are becoming a little bit more festive, as far as and this year we go for a walk almost every evening. And this year, especially because we just moved into that neighborhood in 2020 and now it's 2023, there are more and more lights and decorations, and it's just really festive and really fun to go walk around in the evening. And honestly, my decorations are so simple. I just have like one little strand going across the porch, and I have some little candy canes that light up going around the landscaping. I have this tree next to the garage that's got some lights on it. And then I have a couple pillows on the chairs on the porch, and then the wreath, and that's it. It's not a big deal. It's not when you compare it to the other houses.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not one, I could care less about materialism or keeping up with the Joneses. That's not my style at all.
Right.
But after walking night after night after night and seeing these decorations, I thought, well, we should get some deer, because we have deer in the neighborhood that come throughout that. Maybe we should get some lighted deer because I think they're really pretty.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we went looking for them one day and we found some. And, my partner was going to buy them. And I was like, you know what? Don't buy them. And he was like, well, why not? And I was like, it's just something else to store. It's just something else to waste money on. And like we said, it's enough. Like what we have is enough. Not that you even have to have anything up. You don't.
Right.
My aunt and I have been in contact today, and her husband had a really bad car accident, and he's been recovering all year from this. And he just got a setback. He was finally walking again, and he was helping with some landscaping, and his ankle got caught in, like a hole in the ground.
Okay.
And so it set him back, and she was like, we don't even have a Christmas tree up. And I'm like, you don't have to. You really don't even have to have that.
Because it's really the internal connection and the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes though the internal connection wants us, or not wants, okay, wrong word. It expands us into the physical. So as long as this is first and the physical secondary, which science has proven to be true, then it does make sense to have the physical expression happen. But yeah, a lot of the time it's enough. And I think you and I are in a different place of understanding materialism because we actually aren't great at it.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's been number one.
Mm-hmm.
And the physical world has been very, very important. And it's very, very clear that the divine and the Christ message is that, no, the internal world is true. And now you see that proven through quantum physics that what you pay attention grows, the placebo effect and all that. So we're asking and inviting you to awaken the Christ consciousness or awaken your own alignment with the divine within. Shall we meditate?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to drop us in and then I'll do the affirmations?
So if you're sitting, see if you can get your feet firmly planted on the ground.
Oh, God, we need this.
Both
Both of us are a hot mess. We've been working too much.
I know, I was supposed to slow down this month, and I just sped up.
Oh, girl.
Okay, see? We need to ground. Get your feet firmly planted on the ground. And start to align your spine. That unblocks the flow of energy so it has easy access up and down through the heart. And see if you can gaze into the mind's eye, which is at the center of the brow. But keep your attention at your heart center. Considering the metaphysical or the spiritual heart that dwells within. And then start some breath work to breathe into that space. Imagining a light resting here, but growing and expanding with each breath that we take.
And just affirming, I am connected to divine love. I am accepting this love deeply. I am accepting this divine love. I am accepting this love and allowing it to expand and nurture all of me. With every breath, my energy pulls inward and connects to love. I am unified in the light of Christ's love. I am awakening the Christ light within me. I awaken this energy not as a religious proclamation, but as a journey and a tool just for the now moment. I am allowing the wisdom of one of the most loving beings to ever walk this earth to show me a deep connection to love. I open my heart and accept the love and the grace and the compassion that the Christ energy held so deeply. And I receive these gifts. I receive the gift of love from the divine. And I receive the gift of grace from the divine. And I receive the gift of compassion. And these gifts allow me to dissolve my fear and my self-judgment. I dissolve my fear and my self-judgment. And as the parts of me that hold pain and keep me separate dissolve, I feel a new layer of love and acceptance and truth. And this remembering of truth and alignment with truth sets me free from my past. So I can have a living, interactive relationship with the divine in the now moment. I am allowing the Christ Spirit to be alive inside of me. I am so grateful for this awakening.